The first one will be an important update from our city clerk. 1 week from today is Election Day. I know all of us have been actively involved in making sure residents in our community are well aware of the upcoming election and how they can vote safely. So we've asked our city clerk to provide an update and also to answer any questions that we may have. So I'll turn it over to our city clerk. Joel, want to take it away?
Thank you, Mayor. So this presentation is designed for the commission as well as our public too, our voters and our potential voters. So the audience, I've designed this for information for the community as well as you, commissioners. So first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about voter registration, what's going on with that. Voter registration has increased greatly since 2016. If you notice the increase, if you see the difference between 2008, 2012, and 2016, kind of a 2,000 net increase in voters from there. But look at the difference between 2016 and 2020. We've had a net increase of 13,000 registered voters in the last 4 years. We've even had a huge increase of about 4,000 voters just since August because of some of the work that the Secretary of State's office did by people registering to vote. They did a mailing to a whole bunch of voters that had were potentially on a verify list that they could go in and update their registrations online. So a lot of things, technology has changed in the last 4 years. If you remember, we had Proposal 3 of 2018. That changed the voter registration from being an opt-in process at the Secretary of State's office. You had to ask to register to vote to it's now an opt-out procedure. So if you don't want to register to vote, you have to opt out. So that adds increase. And you also have people can register online with their Michigan driver's license. Plus, you have many organizations that have spent the last 4 years registering qualified electors to vote, either by sending things out by mail or doing voter registration drives by canvassing neighborhoods at events. So even with physical distancing and not having events, we're still seeing people getting registered quite a bit. So if you can see, that's a big trend upwards. We've also had an increase in the population in the city, which would add voters as well. So we've had, obviously, as we're doing these redevelopment projects, we're adding more apartments and various other living spaces in the city of Grand Rapids as well. So that would add to the increase in voter registration. As of yesterday, we've issued 59,273 ballots, absentee ballots, and we received 43,171 back. That's a 72% return rate. Grand Rapids is just about or a little bit higher than the Kent County rate. And I think that's because of all the drop boxes that we've added. So it's given voters a lot of different options in order to get their ballots back. As I said before, Senate Bill 57 was signed into law allow for pre-processing the day before the election. We have over 80 AV counting board workers assigned to pre-processing and the absent voter counting board. So hopefully that will help us on the back end if we can start at least getting those envelopes opened and prepared so we can get them as quickly as we can to the tabulators on Tuesday morning. So just a reminder, pre-processing allows us to open the envelopes, remove the secrecy sleeves that have the ballot into the out of their envelope, and then we can't do any tabulation until Tuesday morning. We've had positive absentee/registration events held at Dwelling Place, souls to the polls at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, and at City Hall this last weekend. The clerk's office is open 5 to 7 every Tuesday and Thursday for the month of October. And that's at both locations, City Hall and Election Central. And the clerk's office is open this Saturday, October 31, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at both locations as well. If you still have, so this is a message to the community, if you have an absentee ballot, you're encouraged to return to the clerk's office or in a drop box. We are too close to Election Day for the mail. Please use one of those, either drop it off or put it in a drop box. And the only people that can deliver a ballot for you is a family member or somebody from your household. So please remember that as well. The last date to have an absentee ballot mailed to you is Friday at 5 p.m. That will be a tight mail frame if you're requesting it that way. You may receive a ballot in person on Saturday and Monday. On Monday, you need to vote it in the clerk's office. You can't take it with you. The cutoff for receiving absentee voting is Monday, November 2 at 4 p.m. So those are very important dates. Once again, the last time for us to mail it is Friday. On Saturday and Monday, you can receive them in person at the clerk's office. And on Monday, you have to vote in the clerk's office. You can't take it with you. And when we say the clerk's office, the office that the space in City Hall or 201 Market that the clerk's office is utilizing. The last time to return your ballot is at 8 p.m. on election night. That includes the mail. It is not by postmark. There was a court case out there where a judge allowed for an extension that was overturned by the Court of Appeal. So the last time to return your ballot is 8 p.m. on election night. That includes the mail, not a postmark. Make sure to sign your envelope. With the new design of the envelopes, we have had very few unsigned ballots or mismatched signatures. With all those ballots we received back, and if the ballot is not signed, we contact the voter immediately. We've been collecting information from voters on their absentee, so we can get a hold of the voter so they can remedy their signatures. Moving on to election day. So in precinct voting, intimidation and harassment will not be tolerated in the precincts. Election workers will handle the situation first, and then a response from the city if not resolved. Once again, intimidation and harassment will not be tolerated. That's also been stated by the Kent County prosecutor, Kent County clerk, the Secretary of State Attorney General. Intimidation and harassment will not be tolerated, and we will take care of it if we have to, or we will take care of it if that is happening. Voters may not wear campaign buttons, masks, hats, shirts, etc. They will need to remove them or cover them. So anything that deals with a proposal on the ballot or a candidate on the ballot or a political party on the ballot, they cannot wear those things. So we'll ask them to, we'll have extra masks there if someone's wearing a campaign mask to replace that. Voters may wear items that simply say simply vote or other political themes that does not promote a party or a candidate proposal on the ballot. So a difference would be vote today, vote for all lives, vote for Black lives, vote for anything that's political speech, but it's not campaign speech. So Black Lives Matter or American flag with like a blue line or a red line through it, that's political speech. That's not campaign speech. So those things are okay, but Make America Great Again, I'm with Joe, those kind of things you can't wear into the precinct, or a Republican elephant or a Democratic donkey wear. So I just want to make sure voters know what they can and cannot wear into the precinct. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anyone still in line at 8 p.m. may still vote. So the polls, we won't close anything until that last voter goes through the line. But make a plan for the day. I highly recommend your hands on your steering wheel, 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Those are kind of lighter times. If you're able to vote at those times, help your fellow voters out by going to times if you can go at a less busy time. But once again, if you're in line at 8 o'clock, you may still vote. We have assigned 7 to 10 election workers in each precinct. We're giving them each $100 hazard pay for working in the precincts. We are so appreciative of all the election workers or potential election workers that have stepped up and said, I want to help. We keep getting 5 to 10 applications a day. We're adding those people to a standby list. We're building quite a standby list because, a lot of things can happen in the next week for workers that are assigned. So we're asking anybody who filled out an application, we may not have contacted you because we're just inundated with all those applications. So thank you for everybody who stepped up. Precinct workers will wear badges that will identify them as workers. So voters will know who is the precinct chairperson and who are election workers. With this amount of workers, we'll have greeters working the line to make sure that voters are in the right place and to observe what is happening outside at the precinct. A lot of elections, we only have, maybe 3, 4, 5 election workers. So we're not outside looking at what's going on. We'll have people that can work the line, go outside to make sure it's safe out there, to report back anything that they're seeing outside at the precinct. Poll challengers, just a reminder, poll challengers and poll watchers are not new positions in the state of Michigan or the city of Grand Rapids. They've been at elections for a long time. They've just been kind of highlighted lately. Poll watchers are appointed and credentialed by political parties and registered interest groups. They will also be given a badge to differentiate them from workers. Challengers may be behind the workers and observe the process and make challenges. Challenges must be made with a reason. They have to have reason in order to make a challenge. They can't just make a challenge based on a voter's look or appearance or speech. And they have to be made to a precinct chair or a worker, not to a voter. Just to reiterate, they can watch the process, they can't touch anything, and they can't they can't hold up the process. A challenge must be made with a reason and made to a precinct chair worker, not to a voter. Challengers may not be disruptive and may be asked to leave. So we will not tolerate anybody that's going to be holding up our process in making unbiased challenges. And I've talked to different groups that will be assigning challengers just to that we're all on the same page. Poll watchers are a little bit different. They're allowed in a public area. They do not have to have credentials, and there isn't a limit to the number. They may not be disruptive and do not make challenges. They may be asked to leave if disruptive. So under the health department, they talk about how many people can occupy a building, who can wear masks. They have exceptions for voting. So we will try to keep the area, people spaced out. So we don't usually get a lot of poll watchers, but this year we may. But once again, a poll watcher is just allowed. They can't really talk. They're there just to watch the process. So for speaking of PPE and what's under the health department, personal protective equipment is provided for every worker. We include masks, gloves, face shields. We'll have disinfectant. We'll be wiping things down. Everyone in the precinct must wear a mask. So our election workers, challengers, poll watchers, if the media is coming in to observe in the public area, they all have to wear masks. We are highly recommending that all voters wear masks. And we saw in August that most voters did wear masks, but there are some people who cannot tolerate a mask, and we can't preclude them from voting. So we'll have masks there provided for voters who don't wear one. But once again, just to be clear, we are highly recommending that voters wear masks. It's an exception inside of the health department's emergency order. Voters have to show photo ID if it's in their possession. If they do not have a photo ID with them, they fill out an affidavit on the backside of their application, and it's also signed by an election worker. I've covered this heavily in training with chair people and with election workers, to the point of having big, bold print on one of my slides. The voter does not have to have photo ID in order to vote. Only if they have it in their possession, they have to show it. We're asking, they don't have to go back out to their car to get it. They don't have to go back home to get it. They just simply fill out an application. That is not provisional. That is not any special ballot. They vote like everybody else. To make sure we're clear on that. A work group, including the clerk's office, executive office, emergency management, public safety, attorney's office, and 311, and other departments have been meeting weekly to discuss and plan for polling place safety and post-election concerns. So we take this very seriously, the protection and the safety of the precincts, and also what's going on at City Hall and at the AV Counting Board. We will be able to rapid response if we need clerk's office staff, attorney staff, and then if we also need public safety in the event of an issue. So we've been working on that. Thank you to emergency management for leading this process. Transitioning now to the 0 to 14-day registration. With the change in Proposal 3 of 2018, voters may register, or qualified electors may register up to and including Election Day. So the last time someone could register to vote, except for coming to the clerk's office, was on October 19th. So if they mailed in a registration, it was postmarked by October 19th, we've been adding them onto the list. After that date, if they just need to change their address, they have to come to the clerk's office. So a qualified elector may register up until, and if they are still in line at 8 o'clock, they can still register, and they have to have a proof of residency. And a proof of residency is very simply, the best proof of residency would be obviously a photo ID with their correct address. But if they don't have that, they can show a check stub, something that a bill, something that has their ID, and it doesn't, or not their ID, their proof of residency, and It doesn't have to be on paper. It could be on their phone. So it's just a proof of residency to prove that they live at the residence that they're claiming. They can't do that at the precinct. So they have to go to the clerk's office at City Hall or Election Central, not at the precinct. If they get a ballot, they can vote absentee at either place, or they get a receipt and they can go to their precinct and vote, and they'll be added to the list. Monday through Friday of this week, the clerk's office is utilizing the Calder level and the commission chambers for voter registration and or absentee voting. We had 417 voters come through our check-in and go up to the 9th floor and vote absentee or register to vote. On Saturday, the 31st, Monday, the 2nd, and Tuesday, the 3rd, we'll be utilizing the Monroe level parking area, the Calder level, and the commission chambers for same-day registration or absentee ballots, except for Tuesday. Tuesday would be only in-person registration. We'll also have a flow at 201 Market where voters can go there. They'll go up to the 2nd floor at 201 Market. They'll go in through the fitness room on the 2nd floor. This will be for Monday and Tuesday. Then they will come through the special events office to our office, and we'll have booths set up in the E3 building at there. We've recruited a lot so on Monday, November 2 and Election Day, we've added to our team several city employees and former city employees to assist, either to help us register people, to allow our staff to be on phones, obviously, on Election Day. So I am so grateful to the city manager and the whole city of Grand Rapids staff and departments that have given up staff to work the day before the election and Election Day. This is a citywide. This is not a clerk effort. This is a citywide effort to make this work. And a lot of offices, a lot of departments have weighed in on giving us advice on how to make this work. We've notified the county of our plans as well, because we'll be utilizing that Monroe level during working days on Monday and Tuesday. So we've added a lot of people we also have floaters to help people get people where they need to be. Our floaters will have red vests, so it'll identify them. Who's a floater and help get people to where they need to be. A voter who registers on Election Day may choose to go to the precinct or vote an absentee ballot at the clerk's office, which is at City Hall or 201 Market, Election Central. Election communications. The clerk's office contracted with Well Designed to develop messages and visuals to provide information to voters and have a cohesive GR Votes branding. And I hope you've seen those on Facebook and other places around the city. I've conducted several interviews with local and national television, radio, and newspapers. The clerk staff participated in a couple in-depth stories on the absentee voting process. One of the stations actually kind of tracked a voter who put their ballot in the drop box, and we kind of followed that ballot all the way back through City Hall, all to our safe storage. Facebook ads have been placed to give voters factual and practical information, and they've been shared many times. So, and you may not even notice that they were Facebook ads because they look like they've been posted by the city of Grand Rapids. So that just has pushed out our message, and they've been in English and Spanish. So that those messages have been out there. I will be available to television stations on election morning before the polls open. So I'll be doing a lot of interviews, giving factual information of what voters can expect on Election Day before the polls open at 7 o'clock. Videos have been produced that will be posted on social media. Actually, they went up yesterday, some of them, just to what to expect at your precinct, knowing before you go. And those have actually been viewed. They're on YouTube and through the city's Facebook page and social media, and they've been viewed several hundred times already. The clerk's office and the Office of Communications will respond as needed as questions arise from the community, and we'll get those answered as we're hearing those. And we've been kind of developing message around that. Outfront Media donated billboard space for election messaging. I don't know if you've seen them on some of the digital billboards, but this is a billboard on Granville Avenue between Hall and Franklin. Once again, giving a message to the community there of going to michigan.gov/vote to be prepared for Election Day. I know that was a lot of information. I truly appreciate the city commission and mayor, you and your partnership also of being supportive of what we need to do on election day, and giving information that you're hearing in the community as well. And we've also, on the other part of the communications, is we've had some very successful community Zoom meetings and presentations. Commissioner Asasi and I were on a panel last week. Commissioner Repper and I were on another panel the week before. I've done one with NAACP, and so it's been those have been great to get out information into the community of factual information, so voters can cut through what they're seeing on social media. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk. I will open it up for questions. First, I'm going to relay my thanks. I know this really has been a team effort, not just within the city as an organization, but also in partnership with a lot of community organizations and community members. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And I'll just reiterate your comments about our commitment to make sure that this is a safe and secure election, and that we are also well prepared for anything that may come up on election day. And we have a strong emergency operating center and team in place. And just want to assure everyone that this is going to be a smooth and seamless election 1 week from today. So commissioners, I'll open it up to you for any questions or comments. I know many of you have been actively engaged. I see Commissioner Moody's hand is up. And maybe City Clerk, if you can take down your PowerPoint so I can see everybody, that would be great. Commissioner Moody, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Joel, for this report. I really appreciate the work that you have put into making sure that the elections go as smoothly as possible. I have just one question, and that question is centered around the challengers and the poll watchers. Do you have any idea as to how many challengers would be available at each site and poll watchers?
So I don't have an answer to the poll watchers because normally we do not have poll watchers. We just have poll challengers. So I don't know who that is because they don't have to be credentialed. So, but with poll challengers, I know the Republican Party and the Democratic Party will be having challengers in not all the precincts, but in several precincts. And then Proactive will have challengers generally in the 3rd Ward precincts and maybe some of the 1st Ward precincts. And then also there's the voter protection lawyers groups. They'll have challengers, but they're not going to be in precinct because of COVID and various other things. They know they want to be more nimble, so they'll be doing stuff through Zoom meetings, and then they'll rapid response if they need to go to a precinct. So I would say each group can have 2 challengers in a precinct, but I'm guessing 1 from each. So maybe 3, maybe 4 at the max challengers, and I'm not sure on poll watchers because we really haven't had poll watchers in the past. So that we will monitor that.
But poll watchers don't have to identify themselves.
That's correct. They're just there to view the process.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That's a good question. And I think it's also important to note because of the increase in absentee ballots that we're receiving, I anticipate we'll have fewer people showing up at the polls than 4 years ago, just out of the numbers of returns that we've already seen. So that I think also will be helpful as it's a long ballot, and it'll give people time, and hopefully there won't be long lines for people who do show up on election day at the precincts.
But they have to physically distance, so that's a little bit.
Yes. And we're masks. So we want to, it's an interesting time because we are having an election in the midst of a pandemic. But based on what we saw in August during the primary, I expect our community to be mindful of the precautions and keep their social distance and do what they can to make sure everybody stays safe. So I have a lot of faith in our community.
And I'm watching the weather closely. Right now, it's showing 54 for a high and sunny. No. So
great.
However you pray or ask for stuff, please ask for dry weather.
All right, we'll add that to our prayer list. All right, commissioners, Commissioner Ruppert.
I was just going to say, I know, Joel, that you've talked about this before, but you didn't didn't explicitly call it out in your presentation, but can you just share a bit about Spanish and translators at polling sites and things being translated for the day?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So we had the all 4 proposals translated into Spanish, and we'll have those we'll have those to be posted at all the precincts. We've also made extra copies of those that be handed out in the 7 precincts that have the highest amount of Spanish-speaking voters. We've worked on as we've been assigning election workers, if they have bilingual skills, we've been assigning them to 7 precincts that we identify as having the highest amount of Spanish speaker. And then I reached out to Ms. Dow and then with Commissioner Asasi as well to have some volunteers to help with interpreting in those precincts as well. And I asked for that assistance last week. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Great, thanks. All right, other questions or comments, commissioners? Commissioner Asasi? And then Commissioner Lanier.
Thank you, Mayor. So thanks for the presentation, Joel, and for the work of the clerk's office and everyone else that's been tied to this. We had a good session last week. Thank you to Mr. Jordan Eatman for pulling that session together. I think we left with some comments where people made statements like, I learned something new, I didn't know that. And as we told people, we take this work very seriously, but we also want to have some fun doing it. It's great to see people, socially distanced, to welcome people. I'm here on the 9th floor, and there's been a flurry of people coming up, and just really appreciate the staff that's up here welcoming individuals. My questions are around, I heard you in the first part of the presentation talk about certainly that we're not going to tolerate intimidation or harassment. I think that is important to say. And I also think that people have specific questions about what does intimidation mean to them, and that I feel like we need to be more explicit with that. I know we're going to continue to have those conversations, and there's some things on the state level as it relates to weapons and precinct locations, and obviously a lot of precinct locations are in churches and schools, but I do think we need to be more explicit with that language when we say that things aren't tolerated. What isn't tolerated? What could be considered intimidation? So that's my feedback. We also talk about what does a response look like from the city, and so I think even just explaining, I know probably, we never share like our operational things on the GRPD side, but is there some pieces where people could, expect what would be appropriate? Commissioner Lanier and Commissioner Reppard and I were on a call with our neighborhood association leads last week, and there was a lot of questions. And I think, there's a lot of anxiety about maybe what the results might be going into a polling place. We see an increase in COVID here in Kent County as well. And so just a lot of feelings and neighbors asking us questions specifically about what to expect. So that's just another follow-up. I also want to just add on there, you talked specifically about what people can or cannot wear, which I think is great. That was a great addition to our session last week. Also, a lot of times we live in, in 2008, we weren't maybe as technology savvy or didn't have as much. I had a BlackBerry. What are people allowed to take photos of individually? So that probably should also be a message. And then I only have 2 more, I think, or maybe 3 more. One, in one of the past election cycles, actually, I don't know if it was last year, just coordinating with our engineering departments and seeing about any construction that might be going on around polling locations. And you may have already done that, maybe just didn't make the presentation, but I've had a couple people ask about that. A reminder to people who are watching that if you have served your time, even if you were charged with a crime in the past, you can still vote. I still get that question. I got that question 3 times last week. We got that question on the session. Joel, I know you've gotten that. I also think that, Joel, you and the county clerk's office, I believe, in working with our Kent County Sheriff's Department, have helped to get absentee applications to those who are currently awaiting So they haven't been convicted of a crime. So those individuals are eligible to vote. And I think that I was really happy to hear that. I think that aligns so much with our commitment to equity and really making sure what are the levers we have to pull so that everyone can be, can cast their vote. So that is it's a big kudos for that. And I think the last thing, and maybe more, Mayor, this is for you since I know you serve on the Rapid Board. I know in other communities, I've seen some things about like free rides or things like that on Election Day. And I don't know if the Rapid has discussed that at all, but I was also asked that question as we've been prepping for this election. So some of those might need responses, some of those might not, Joel. But again, thank you for all the work. I look forward to, I voted in person. I brought somebody to vote in person. I dropped off my ballot, but I brought my aunt, and she had a lot of apprehension, and the city staff were just so helpful. It's very clear that there's a strong commitment to making sure that our election is not only secure, is safe, and we get our neighbors to vote. Thank you.
So let me just, on the harassment intimidation thing, this is how I've been talking about it in my training classes. What I consider harassment or intimidation would be different than what you, with Commissioner Sassi, with your feeling of intimidation or harassment too. So if a voter says they're feeling intimidated or harassment, then we have to address it because that's what they feel. It's hard to describe it because I've asked workers like that, if I'm standing against the wall watching what's happening, am I harassing or intimidating you? And the answer may be yes. So we need to make sure, but we have to make sure that we're not interrupting someone's rights to be there to watch a process too. On the weapons, I've been struggling with it because we've had direction from the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General and State Police, but different directions from the Kent County Prosecutor and county sheriff's offices and other police departments around the state. So, I mean, we'll have further discussions. The Secretary of State and the Attorney General were sued today. They're having oral arguments. As soon as we have a clear direction, we will share that on what it is with open carry. But if we do fall back to Supreme Court case from 2018 that says if a church or school is a gun-free zone, you cannot open carry in there. So we will fall back to that. But we'll have further discussions on that. For construction, yes, I'm on top of construction. You can ask Tim Berkman, because every time I see a barricade goes up somewhere, I've been asking him, how long is those barricades going to be up? And especially with drop boxes too. So they know I'm on top of construction because I ask it all the time. And yes, the jail has been fantastic. And so we keep talking about who can vote. Let's just make it very clear. If you're serving time, you can't vote. How's that? Let's make it very clear. If you're serving your sentence, you can't vote. So if you're in probation, if you're waiting trial, if you've served your time, you are more than welcome to participate in joining the process. So I changed the message. I think somebody from USCC actually mentioned, let's have the messages, who can't vote? If you're serving your time, you can't vote. Everybody else, you're welcome to join the process. Let's make the message clear instead of muddying the waters. I think that's just a more clear, cohesive message. And yes, the jail's been very supportive. We've got Kathy Harris and others have gone in and brought in materials, but the jail, along with the county clerk's office, has been very great for getting people. We've seen lots of absentee ballots going to the jail, and also we've been kind of sending some stuff down to other counties or other communities that we have inmates, obviously, because they did something in Kent County, allegedly did something in Kent County. But they live somewhere else, so we've been funneling those to, like, I think we had to send an application down to the Battle Creek clerk's office. So we're getting things where we need to go.
Mayor, if I could, please.
Yeah, go ahead, City Manager.
Clarify for those that are listening. I believe that the city attorney is prepared to provide us legal guidance on some of the interpretation of state law in closed session. So the conversation Joel was mentioned would be more of some of the attorney-client privilege information. But I also want to emphasize from the clerk's comment earlier about the support of the Grand Rapids Police Department. The police department will be vigilant and present during the night and week of elections, and We are unaware of any known threats at this time, like many other cities in Michigan, but we will be vigilant, and those efforts have been coordinated through our emergency management office. So we will be prepared to protect the rights of all citizens and voters and make sure that all of our community feels safe on that night. So I just want to assure the public of that.
Thank you, City Manager. I appreciate the clarity, and I think it's important for all of us to continue to make sure and that our community knows that, and we're committed to it, and reassure them that it's safe to vote, and we're going to have ample resources available to respond if needed. So thank you.
Sorry, you froze for a minute there, Mayor.
Just for a minute. Commissioner Lanier, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you so much, Joel, for the thorough presentation. It was really, it touched on all facets of voting, and I appreciate the time that it must have taken to put what you've been saying, across all of the forums and in those meetings into a document like that. So thank you. I actually want to touch on some of the points that my colleagues have already touched on, but just ask a different question regarding the translation. I'm curious to know, I know you were talking about with the proposals having those translated and posted as people are entering into the buildings. Is it possible to have a laminated version of those posted inside of each booth? So then that'll be another location for voters to have the information right at their fingertips, if you can do something like that. Poll watchers, I kind of have the same question as Commissioner Moody regarding the poll watchers and how do we, I think with the challengers, even in your presentation, it was clear of what to expect from them. With poll watchers, it seems to be a little less clear. And I'm just curious to know, how are you, maybe you can talk about how you're training your election workers to handle poll watchers. And I think in this environment where social distancing is critical, do you have a gallery where you place poll watchers so that that's kind of the location? Is that allowed? And if it is, that would be a recommendation, because so then when they come in, they can know exactly where they can go to keep the distance between them and voters. The intimidation, I think you spoke on that in response to Commissioner Isasi. And I know that there are groups who have been reaching out to different polling locations to find out their gun-free policies in churches and in schools. So I don't know if you've done that as the clerk, but that probably would be something to do, or I can connect you with the group who's already been doing the work, and maybe they'd be willing as a partner to share the work that they've already done so that you'll know which locations already have policies on the books, so that you can kind of have your list and know where open carry is allowed or not in the event that whatever rules are passed about that. Right. But thanks again for all of your work. I know you've been working very hard 7 days a week, and it's appreciated.
Good, thank you. I'll leave gun stuff so we can talk about later. But for poll watchers, we do designate in the layouts of the precincts a public area of where it is, so we can put it in an area where the voting isn't happening. So the issue is we pen it off. Some of our polling locations aren't very big as well, so we can social distance. We can physically distance where that is, but then it's going to be up to anybody who wants to poll watch how close they want to be with people that are there inside that same little area. So we'll try to keep the poll watchers away from voters, but we have to. The one thing we want to remember is that how you vote is private. That you vote is a public process. So you had Commissioner Isasi asked about photos. Once again, taking pictures so the media can take photos from the public area, so a challenger can't take pictures of people. That would be intimidation, factor like that. But they can record in like a tablet who's voting, because some of the challengers are there twofold to they're also working on their turn out the vote lists. So they're allowed to take notes. That's always been the case. Because remember, you vote is public, how you vote is private. And so in the old days, challengers would be there with a list and they would cross off people's names as they vote, and then it would go to a phone bank to turn out the vote. Well, now in this technology, they may have a tablet. I think I said a Palm Pilot when in the class to age myself. But anyway, they could have a tablet where they're marking off names, and they would probably go to a robocall. So they're allowed to take notes. So we've explained that to workers as well.
And City Clerk, this is, I think, another thing I've been relaying to folks who've talked to me. If anyone has any concerns about voting on Election Day, there's ample opportunity to come right down here to City Hall and to vote here at City Hall between now and Election Day. So that's another option for folks. Or as City Clerk indicated, request an absentee, fill it out, and put it in one of the drop boxes. So
let me clarify one thing. So the Secretary of State keeps talking about early voting. You can vote early. Michigan does not have early voting like they have in Texas and Georgia and Virginia. So voters are very upset because they've been hearing the messages from the media and from other folks that say vote early. When they come here and then find out they're going to vote an absentee ballot, they're not pleased because the ballot's not going through a tablet or they can't check it. So we've had voters who have left because then they'll go to the precinct because they want to put it in a tabulator. So let's have our message clear when you're talking about people coming to vote. They're coming to vote in an absentee ballot that goes in an envelope that is counted on Election Day. I probably should have that bullet in there, but I keep explaining that all the time.
Yes, I think that's clear to all of us, but thank you for clarifying that. Yes, you're casting your absentee ballot that will be voted on Election Day. So that's a good reminder. But that is an option, and I think that's important for people to know. Yeah. All right, Commissioners, any other questions or comments for our City Clerk? All right, I'm going to close.
So I want to make sure, so challengers are able to record video?
No, not record video.
I thought that's what I heard you say.
Sorry,
okay.
No, record like jot down notes, record on a tablet, not video recording, sorry.
Okay, when you said record on a tablet, I was thinking utilizing the tablet to record. Got it.
Taking notes.
Taking notes. Okay, yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
Write down or take notes. All right, any other final comments? And then Commissioner Hassi?
Thanks. So just another reminder too, November 1st, we go back, we go backwards. I always forget what the daylight savings. So it will be darker out in the evenings on Election Day. So going back to that idea of making a plan, like you said, 10 and 2 are good times. And like you said, we have to remember that the lines may look longer because of social distancing, but they might not necessarily be longer. And so will we have volunteers, like you mentioned, some of the greeters, will they then go outside if the line does have to end up going out there?
Yeah, so yes, that's a great question. So that's why we have the greeters, so that we have some eyes out there that can relay information back inside of what's happening outside. Yes.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk.
So,
All right.
so
We'll go.
Mayor, if I can make a quick comment.
Sure, City Attorney.
Just for clarity, and for intimidation, we'll be evaluating those on a case-by-case basis. And so we have a team in place that will be on call anytime there's a complaint about intimidation, that will dispatch someone from legal there. And what we're looking for are those things that would deter someone from voting or dissuade them or influence them to vote away differently than they were planning. So it's not just saying that I'm intimidated, but it has to be another step there that it actually affects how they're going to vote. And so that's what we'll be looking for, just to make that clear.
Thank you, City Attorney. And I should also remind folks, as similar to years past, I know you and the city attorney's office is actively involved and available all day on election day to address issues that come up. And so know that this is a team approach, and we'll have ample staff from our law department available to help with anything that comes up at any of the precincts. All right. I think with that, then we'll go ahead and move on. Again, thank you, City Clerk, for all of your work.